computer has. You know, like you wouldn't go and buy a Ferrari is really nice, but you wouldn't buy a Ferrari to pull a boat. You know, it has the horsepower, but you're going to rip the back of the thing off. You know, so it's just not the right tool for the job, even though it's a super fancy, high and highly engineered, whatever.
The problem with Mac, though, deal breaker means you can't run Linux on it.
That's like the only.
Oh, but you can run Linux on it. What he's really saying is you can't run Linux natively, but it's already running Unix natively.
You can't run Linux at the same workflow.
But you don't need to. It's running Unix already.
Yeah.
What are you using? What do you want to run on it that you think it needs Linux for that it can't run under Unix? Nothing. So everything that you run right now will run every bit as good at a bash shell on, I guess it uses ZSH, but you can run bash on it, no problem. If you like bash, you type bash, switches right over to it. Great. They get the same shell you want. No difference. It's Unix.
But like, I feel like Macs, well, I mean, it's a debate. Like, most people would say like Macs are much faster, which is fine.
It's not accurate.
What?
Macs are most faster than Windows.
Well, it depends on a lot of different.
Tons of things.
Like,
It is a fact that
Mac
Linux is fast.
and Linux, like whatever, it's, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it'll make any difference if you switch on a Mac versus if you do on a Windows.
But I mean, but it's a lot more complicated than that, and that's why I moved it to like an example of a car, which all of you have more knowledge about than computers at this point. You're young computer scientists. You know you don't go buy a Ferrari if you're going to be pulling a truck or pulling a boat. You buy a truck or a big SUV, something that's rated for pulling 5,000 pounds or something like that. Yet if you're going to be doing, I don't know what, track racing or something like that, well, you probably don't get a pickup truck for winning car races, right? You get something very aerodynamic with a lot of horsepower that doesn't weigh very much and has things on it to keep it on the ground so it doesn't flip up into the air. So they're both powerful tools. They're just good at different things. So it really depends on the stuff you're going to use the machine for. Apple is not always faster. In fact, I might even argue Apple is usually not faster. You know, this AI thing, Apple, if you have a 20 gigabyte AI model, that will very likely run faster on a newer NVIDIA GPU that has at least that, you know, let's say like a 3090 Ti has 24 gigabytes of RAM in it. It will very likely run faster on that model than it would run on the latest, greatest MacBook Pro. Yeah, because it fits inside of the GPU. NVIDIA has these things called CUDA cores, which are currently the fastest. I mean, they've been modified recently for AI workflows. So the fastest you're going to get performance-wise in an AI model is a CUDA core, but it has to fit inside of memory. Your biggest CUDA core thing is 32 gigs if you want to spend $4,000. Yeah, you can start playing the game of putting multiple 4090 GPUs or 5090 GPUs into a single computer. Now you're going to start dealing with external power supplies to power those graphics cards.
Like instead of like a regular Python file, they
Well, they do that because it's easier to pay per usage when it's in the cloud because that's someone else's hardware. So you can run that on a glorified calculator from your computer because you're just sending a request up there. You don't need a fancy laptop to use AI cloud computing stuff because all the fancy stuff's happening in the cloud, but you're paying for that. If you want to run stuff locally on your computer and it's good enough for some tasks, there's all sorts of AI models that'll fit on people's computers. Yeah, it's not as good as ChatGPT 5.4, but good is relative depending on the task you're doing. If you're just summarizing papers, there's a zillion models that can summarize papers just as well as ChatGPT 5.4, because that is AI's bread and butter, is summarizing papers. It's probably the best at that. And then it does all these other things reasonably well. Yeah, so it's a loaded thing. So I always get max with maxed RAM because I do a lot of AI workflows and I might be loading large models. Unified memory is beneficial to me, and that's the only place to get it now. I was ticked off with the new M5s that I couldn't get 256 gigs of RAM on it, which is garbage. Even at least 192. Still 128 was the.
That's why you buy your own RAM, open it up, plop it in. Oh, wait.
There's nothing to plop it in.
Well,
That's
isn't
right.
Max pretty much like
Yeah, I think
90%
that.
battery and then the rest of it
Yeah.
is straight.
So
That's what makes it good for power efficiency, is that like half the whole computer is battery.
well, I mean, it's because Apple runs system on a chip, which is what everybody else is going to. Because everybody's going to be running localized RAM. I think you're going to see less and less upgradable memory moving forward.
It's so it's terrible.
Why?
Well, it's good for consumers because they're not that doesn't matter. But
Well, it's not good for consumers. They have to buy new computers every time they need more RAM. They'll buy enough RAM to begin with.
well, I
right?
want to be like,
Well, I mean, you gotta, but it's ultimately comes down to what you spend the money on. You know, there's a book I pushed young people onto called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich." It's written by this Indian guy. Really good book, and the talks about automating all your expenses and stuff so you don't run up credit card bills and things. But his main premise that I like about it is he uses the Starbucks latte as an example. You know, a latte is just a cup of steamed milk with 2 shots of espresso in it for $7. That's what a latte is. It is not worth the money. But some people, that is the way they want to start their day. You want to start your day with your smoothie, your $6 smoothie or whatever, but it's important to you. It helps get your day rolling. It puts you in a frame of mind, whatever it is. So don't save your $6 there. Save it somewhere else, somewhere that's not important to you. You know, don't order the side of fries or, you know, things that are not that important to you. Just find some other way of that getting those $8. Don't make sacrifices on the thing that's kind of important. So the trick for you is to stop buying budget pleaser computers and saying, well, this runs Linux and that's braggable, when really it's because that's the only thing your computer can run is Linux.
Computer came with Windows on it.
Well, yeah, and you immediately rejected it because it didn't run Windows very well.
No, it ran fine. This is terrible rage bait.
I saw outside of Dr. Locklear, Josh's door. He has a thing up with you probably don't know who the guy is. So you miss his meme.
Creator of Linux.
Yeah, Linus Torvalds is the guy. It's the creator of Linux. And let me look at what it actually says on the picture, which is kind of funny. Because a computer is like air conditioning. It became useless when you open Windows. Oh, you were responsible?
Yeah.
Did you know who that was when you did it? Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, Linus Torvalds is well, you say he's the inventor of Linux, but really Linus Torvalds took OpenBSD Unix, which is what Mac runs, by the way. Took OpenBSD Unix and said, hey, I don't want to have to pay for this because it was licensable. So he made a POSIX compatible operating system called Linux that operated using the same command line structure, you know, to do a directory listing, it's ls. So all the commands at the shell, it runs. So he basically duplicated OpenBSD Unix in a free Linux kernel thing that other people can do. That was kind of the birth of the open source world, probably the Linux thing. Huh? You've been using Unix. You've been using the thing that Linux tried to copy.
And did it better.
and did it better.
At the fundamental level, I'm technically at the very, very fundamental level. Yes, I am. I am a Linux user, guys.
Well, you're a Unix user, but you can run a virtual machine on your computer and launch Linux. You can launch Windows. You can launch all these things. You know, he doesn't have enough system resources to launch Windows inside of Linux.
I can, my battery life is drained.
I said you don't have enough system resources to launch Windows inside of Linux. It's like, I do, but my computer shuts off.
Okay. My laptop's plugged into the wall.
Computer shuts off on me. Does not work. How much RAM do you have? What do you like?
16.
You have 16 gigs of RAM? And you think you're going to run Linux and Windows in a virtual machine?
Yep.
You have more to worry about than your battery life.
Okay, Linux is very RAM efficient.
Yeah, if you're running like Minix or something, like something that's meant to run on a Raspberry Pi. In fact, you'd be better off getting a Raspberry Pi. Connecting to it through serial on your Windows side and then just running Linux right off that Raspberry Pi. You can carry it in your pocket with a little USB cable coming out. You can even power it off the cable. Don't even need a wall socket.
That sounds like a good idea. I mean, despite the rage bait, that's a pretty good idea. I actually kind of like it.
The hilarious thing is I used Linux way before he was ever born. My early dates with my wife were her sitting there watching me reinstall Linux and doing all sorts of stuff, a zillion times, getting a whole, this is back in the days when Macs and Windows and all these were not compatible. So my early days of working with computers, I was running Linux as a server and getting it to share resources like printers and stuff like that between Windows and Macs. So I had I had a network of 3 different computers during a time period where those didn't speak well. You know, Windows was released in Walmart on computers, so Walmart could have low-cost computers years ago. So instead of coming with Windows, it came with a form of Linux that was meant to look like Windows, called Lindows. That's probably what you're running. You're running Lindows?
No. Running Fedora.
Fedora.
Red Hat.
It is Red Hat. Red Hat used to be they only had Red Hat. Then they decided, let's go enterprise with Red Hat because they sold out. Actually, it's actually extra bad. You chose the Linux that won enterprise that sold out to the big boys.
Still open source.
Still open source.
Is Red Hat used by like cybersecurity?
All sorts of stuff. I mean, if you're doing cybersecurity stuff, there's several versions of Linux that are kind of the distribution. When we say Linux, all different versions of Linux come with the same operating system. The Linux kernel is the same across all of them. It's the distribution that changes. Just like Windows. Windows is not the operating system. The operating system is the NT kernel, new technology kernel. For Mac, the operating system is OpenBSD's kernel. And then they put a distribution, they put all the fancy front end stuff on it, a notepad, text editor, all the stuff you need as a base install. You know, Linux comes with just the thing that just says browser. Yeah, you don't know who made that. Probably a spin-off of Chromium.
When was the last time you used Linux? Because your knowledge is seeming very,
I don't know,
very full.
2 weeks ago.
That's all.
But whenever I install Linux, I typically install server only because I run servers off of it. So I don't run GUI on them.
Desktop environments have gotten really good.
Why are you running a desktop environment?
Oh.
I'm not gonna use a terminal and a browser.
You guys see this?
Okay. I do use a terminal.
It's amateur hour.
No, listen. I do use a terminal a lot, but I need an interface. I need a user interface.
Hi.
How do I use the browser without
Use Lynx or whatever the command line browser is.
No.
You can build your own X11 application.
No.
You're complaining about my Linux knowledge, yet now I'm like, okay, he wants me to install Quartz, and I gotta build my own. Well, wait a minute, I only have 16 gigs of RAM, so I can barely be a soap dish.
I'm not gonna reinvent the wheel. Like it already exists. I'm gonna use it.
I don't know, that just doesn't sound like a Linux user to me. Linux users work with open source stuff. They tweak it. They make changes. You know, this sounds like a Windows user who likes to say they're a Linux user.
I mean,
The rage bait is insane.
All right, this is our last week of classes, isn't it? All right, let's get some back end going here. All right, so we've been talking about MFC or MVC, model view controller. The whole idea is we have our user interfaces in one place. We're seeing that here. We have our database at somewhere else. We've seen some of these API calls and things like that where data is stored someplace else, like our Pokemon thing. Now we need to look at our back end, the things that actually control the logic of what's going on here. We've seen some of it here, but let's think about this from the perspective of like our dungeon crawler. So we're going to put up some exits. Hide meeting control. Okay. Save floor. I'm gonna get rid of a bunch of stuff. All right. Oh, that's the light. So I'm gonna get rid of the player. I'm basically just gutting this. Get rid of my drop point. All right, we just have the floor. I'm gonna go into my scripts. I'm gonna get rid of my Rain the Fury script. All right. Ooh. Yeah, I was complaining that. Are you sure you want to delete this from your Dropbox? I used Windows 20 some years ago when Walmart had it on computers. Do they? Is it even still an active distribution?
I searched up the logo and I was so surprised to see that.
All right. So I'm going to put some exits in here. So I'm going to create a empty game object. We'll just call this guy exits. Inside here, I'm going to add some exits just north, south, east, west. So I'm going to add a 3D object. We'll make a cube. We'll move that guy here. Copy it. Move this here. Copy it. Move this here. Copy it. Move this guy here. All right, so this is going to be north. I want to change the name. This is north. Which one is this? Is this south? Probably south.
West.
Thank you. What's this one? To remember northeast, southwest.
Never eat sun.
Never eat shredded.
Never eat shredded wheat.
My dad always said. No, never eat shredded wheat. People in Texas. Yeah. I don't know. The racism. You weird ass.
All right. So let's just make sure this thing. Oh, well, that's fine. Good enough.
You're just mad because we're better.
All right. So now we're going to create a script. So we're going to create a mono behavior script. Now, well, we're going to start it as a mono behavior script, although I think they've added just create a C# script, but I've always done it this way. So we're going to do it this way. So we're going to say set. Actually, let's call this guy exit manager. All right, we'll go ahead and open this guy up. Do I have VS Code installed in here? Nailed it. All right. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you're no longer a mono behavior. Mono behaviors are used to attach to game objects. If you make it not a mono behavior anymore, it'll no longer attach to a game object. Now it's a plain Jane C# script that we can do stuff that we want to with. Can't connect it to a game object, but you can use it for other things. All right, so since it's no longer a mono behavior, we don't have, well, I mean, you can create a function called start and a function called update, but it's not going to play by the I will get automatically called rules anymore because we dropped off its mono behaviorness. It's only mono behaviors that participate in that that sort of call these functions in this order thing. So I'm going to get rid of those. We'll go ahead, and I even broke my own rule by starting this guy off with a lowercase letter. We have to fix that. Ay, it's terrible. Then I need to, well, hold on, I got to go back here. This is important that you name your classes with a capital letter for naming convention wise. All right. So exit manager, capital E, public class exit manager. We're going to need our constructor for this guy. So this is going to be public exit manager. Well, you technically don't need a constructor for him if you're not going to do any constructor stuff. But I'm going to do some constructor stuff in here, and you'll see when we get to it. Actually, let's make this guy a singleton. So we're not going to do constructor stuff. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to create a public game object, north, call it north exit, south exit, west exit, east exit. All right, so I'll create 4 variables. You can create them all on one line like that if you want. You can do the same thing in Java. Can't do the same thing in languages that are loosely typed. Depends on the language. Languages start with the word var, like JavaScript. You could do it on that. Python, if you use the version of Python because Python lets you choose typing if you want. Because of all those things I said where Python sucks, latest versions of Python now allow you to say, treat this like a strongly typed language. I'm okay with that. Because now it's a language that says, look, I can play all the games. You get to choose how you want me to behave. I don't typically let it work this way, but I recently chose Python for a project I'm working on. Now tell me if you think this would have benefited you, and still would benefit you moving forward. So it's come to my attention that many young people today don't care about learning stuff. And part of it is that the whole lecture setup isn't a great format for learning. Yet that's the historical format for learning. So I thought about some of my own interests. And so what I've put together, I've got like so I thought about, here's Concordia. Here's the classes you take in computer science as a freshman. The idea is, what if you want to learn to be a computer scientist? And for instance, something I always say is that coding is not computer science. Coding is the tool that the computer scientist uses to solve problems in various domains of computer science, cybersecurity, AI, whatever, all sorts of different domains. We're picking up a programming language and we're wielding it to solve those problems. So I thought, okay, so I mixed a couple of things together, a couple of themes of stuff I like. So one is the show Stargate SG-1. Started with that, Stargate themed. Then I said, okay, well, we're also a computer science department at a Christian university, so we want to teach them computer science skills through programming in the context of a Christian worldview. Then I said, you know what, I really want this to be kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, being a turn-based game, which are kind of making a comeback. So, and then there's another movie called The Art of Self-Defense. Have any of you seen this? How many of you have seen the sign outside my office with the karate belts on it and a little German saying? The German saying is, I will teach you to be strong. So this movie is called The Art of Self-Defense. It's one of the greatest movies you will ever see. You will start watching it and you will feel like you need to turn this off after 10 minutes because you don't know what's going on. It's like what the heck is this? It has A-listers in it. I mean, this is not like a crappy low budget movie, but the premise is you got this guy who is, basically a weakling. The world is beating him up. He's always getting bullied, has real low self-esteem, blah, blah, blah. Bad things keep happening to him. So he shows up to this karate dojo to try to build his self-confidence. So he goes in, starts off as a white belt, beginner. Then he works his way, he gets his yellow belt, but it's giving him confidence. He wants to wear his yellow belt all the time. So he gets a custom made yellow belt. So the whole movie is about like belts dictating like your confidence level or whatever. And then it just gets crazy from there. So the idea is I wanted to basically, and I did this years ago when that movie first came out, I would hand out these little wristbands to students. So everybody in coding one would get a white wristband because they were a white belt. And then after coding one, you become a yellow belt. But then as you went through the program, it would start differentiating because I wanted people to be like shamed into getting better. You're sitting there and you see some guy with a purple belt and you're sitting there with a blue belt, like, well, I suck. So,
Let's bring it back. It sounds fun.
well, but so the way your level is measured in this game is by your belt color. So, now, how many of you saw the show Stargate SG-1? So Stargate, first of all, one of the greatest series in the history of series. Watch the Stargate movie just to get your intro, but it doesn't do it justice. Stargate SG-1, 10 seasons, awesome show. But every episode is they would go through the Stargate. And the Stargate was, this race called the Ancients installed this gate system around the galaxy or the universe where you could go through these Stargates and connect to worlds all over the place. So every episode had SG-1, Stargate 1, that's the military crew that would go through first. They were the front lines team. They would go through a Stargate. Now they're at another planet. So the whole episode would take place on this other planet with all this stuff. Well, so in my game, the first 4 classes you take, the 1070, the 2000, 2050, and was it 2020 is architecture. Each one of those is a world. So like 1070 is Chulak. So you travel to Chulak through that's the home planet of Teal'c, obviously, right? Everybody was like, what? Well, the gold system lords were there. That was Ra. Ra started from there. Then you had Apophis, and Apophis got killed Ra. Oh, there's a thing. All right, so I put all these things together. And the way you go through these levels, so you travel to Chulak, you go through the Stargate, it makes all the Stargate sounds and stuff like that. Then you have trials in front of you. So each trial has like a mini presentation, a lecture that introduces a computer science concept, as well as a couple of Python functions that you might need to use to explore this concept through coding. It has a built-in IDE. It gives you some starting point. You write some code beneath it. Then you test it. Once you pass the trial, you get credit for it, get some experience, whatever. Going once you finish all the trials at a particular planet, you've earned that belt. You've passed that course, that kind of thing. So right now I have your first year done, and I'm adding more years to it, all the way through undergrad, senior, then grad school, and then out into industry. So I'm going to keep building it. Would that be something that would have been interested that you would be, would have? Would you guys play that if I hosted that somewhere and made it open to students here to compete with each other so you could like lord your ninja belt over other people?
Maybe not.
Well, you wouldn't, but
Well, no, because you have some people that take that stuff too literally and they think they're like the best of the best until they actually get out of it.
yeah, this guy gets it. Yeah, then you just try to one up each other. I mean, because we do that with video games, right? We have esports, which is all about, I mean, you don't get, not just anybody makes the Rainbow Six team. I'm guessing you guys, I mean, didn't they win the national championship last year or whatever, some game? I'm guessing you have like a second and third string team that things drop off quick. You got Joe Nobody who wants to play in the Rainbow Six thing. And you're like, yeah, we would rather just be down a man than you play. That's what I think. So I take it it's a yes, we should have this.
Hence, I tried out.
It doesn't run on Linux, by the way. I think it
Never mind.
requires
I think that
requires Safari as a browser.
Requires.
I don't run Safari. I run Arc. Do you run Arc?
No.
What do you run?
Brave.
Oh, Brave. Well, I run Brave for AI tasks. Brave's a stupid browser. Well, Brave's a good browser for automation. Brave's a stupid browser to run as your main browser. It's just Chromium anyways, but it's still a stupid browser.
I think it's pretty good.
Well, you would. You only have 16 gigs of RAM. You have to be a minimalist, is what I'm saying. My wife, during COVID, was watching this one show.
Used like $300. Doesn't have much on it.
You don't have to get defensive. I'm just calling phases. I'm just calling balls and strikes here. So, during COVID, my wife started watching this show, The Minimalist Mom, which is all about decluttering and stuff like that. Have you heard of The Minimalist Mom?
My wife is into that kind of stuff.
Oh, but what the funny thing was is eventually, so the minimalist mom would have her little episodes and stuff, and her husband was in it with her. And he would have his own channel, and they would do things together. Well, she ended up decluttering him, so they got divorced. And I'm like, so I'm like making fun to I'm like teasing my wife. Says, man, this lady's taking it seriously. She's really just hitting it hard, decluttering her life. Get this guy out of there. All right, well, I'll probably recruit a couple of you to start beta testing this this game soon. It's running already. I just want to test it a little bit more locally before I push it to my cloud, and then it'll be publicly available. But could even be today. All right. So I have my 4 game objects here. I've done nothing else with this guy. I've just made them all public. Let's go back to my code here. All right. Now, when I made something public, what was I trying to accomplish by making these public in here? So when we make our fields public in Unity, the idea is that this then exposes these variables to our interface builder, to our front end, so we can do things. But when I go over here, how do I now access those variables? I have one for north, south, east, and west, but I have not actually connected to those things. How do I connect it to those things? Go ahead.
We go to the place where you have your script at, which.
Is it on Exit? So you want me to put the script here?
Oh,
Well,
yes, you do want to put.
Okay, so you just want me to drag it over here?
Yes.
Okay. Why doesn't it work?
Oh, it's not.
Not a mono behavior. All right. So it's not a mono behavior. So what do I do with that? I need to hook these guys up. This guy's effectively a singleton, right? So why don't we use exit, like you said, because exit's just an empty game object. We're effectively using it as a folder, right? So I'll create another mono behavior script. We're going to keep this one as a mono behavior. And we're going to call this guy maybe startup. Man, well, I'm going to still go with the lowercase for this since it's an ability. It just happens to be a class. The other one we're really treating as a class. So we'll use that to keep these apart. So I'll go into startup. We're going to keep this guy as a mono behavior. In fact, we'll go ahead and we'll click on exit here, and I'll drag startup over there, dropped right in, no problem. All right. So I'll go into startup. Now we know that in startup, this script gets called automatically. Now I want to set my top level thing to those game objects. How do I do that? This guy is the guy I can connect those game objects to. So if I click over here, and I'm just going to copy this, I'm not going to delete it at this point. And I put that in here at the top. Now we should have our expected behavior. This should now be exposed to the front end since they're public. So we'll go over here to our front end. We'll click on exit. We see that we now have 4 things for these to drop into. We'll drag north, south, east, and west over here. I don't know why I purposely did it out of order, but this is what happens when you're using Linux with 16 gigs of RAM. There's a lot of, how much swap space do you use? Oh, you would. Swap space is like fake memory. Like, look, I actually have 24. Wink, wink. Just, did I wink with the wrong eye? Is that that raccoon guy from Guardians of the Galaxy 2? Man, you guys don't, even modern movies you guys aren't getting. Huh? And when they were stealing the batteries from those bad guys, and the raccoon goes, oh yeah, we got these, and he winks with the wrong eye. Did I wink with the wrong eye again? I love that dude. All right. Who? Oh, but except was that the real name or was that the name that what the other guy called it? Yeah, I like that guy too. That guy's awesome. All right, so I have these guys hooked up here, but I want to get them set inside of my exit manager. I want this guy to behave like a singleton. Tell me about singletons. Remind me what those are. I've forgotten. What are singletons? Go ahead.
Singletons are like classes that store your data into like your variables and all that kind of need to access your multiple classes versus having to like do pointers and stuff like that to like try to move them through. It's just like you have one access point.
That's a lot of explanation. What kind of animal is a singleton? When I say singleton, what kind of thing are we talking about? Cat, dog, or design pattern? Design pattern. Okay, so, and what's a design pattern? I have forgotten that as well.
There's no right or wrong way to do it, but it's like the way that you access your data now. It's like a MVC almost. No?
Sorry, I'm trying not to throw up. No, it's not you. It's the Linux thing still. What's a design pattern? Like a real definition. Go ahead.
I don't know about a real definition, but it's
a better definition.
It's a way to solve recurring problems. So it's a blueprint.
Yeah, it's a proposed good solution to a common problem. All right, so we have all sorts of different design patterns. A couple of them we've introduced is Singleton. Singleton says it's a good idea to store stuff in a central location when a lot of guys need access to it. Okay, MVC says it's a good idea to keep your data separate from your user interface, separate from your code behind. Those are the two we've looked at. I've mentioned a thing called like the factory design pattern, which is actually kind of similar to how we commonly use a singleton. So a singleton kind of defines the concept of, hey, it's a nice thing to have stuff accessible in a central location. Now you say, well, what are some different things that I might want to have access to from a central location? So we kind of think if you go out northwest of here, you get to like one of the cheese factories, right? So there's only one of these. I mean, there's only one nearby cheese factory. Let's just pretend like we live in this little bubble here. So why? Because we only need one factory, singleton, that produces cheese for this community. Take the metaphor wherever you want to go with it, but that's the concept for the factory design pattern. It's an extension of a singleton, really, and it just says, here's one use of that guy. All right, so we want this guy to operate as a singleton. So when we created singletons, what did we have to do to the variables in order for us to directly access them? Make them static. What does static do? Remind me, the static keyword. What does a static keyword say? If you put static in front of a class member, so either I've forgotten this as well. What are the things that make up a class? There's three things. A class is a garbage bag filled with what three unique things? Good.
Fields, methods, and properties. No.
Properties would be the name of fields in other languages.
Phone a friend.
Yeah. Phone a friend. Do you have a choice? It is constructors. Would that have been the friend you were going to phone?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, well, because you got the right answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the last one you were gonna, not Linux guy, right? It's like, well, what package manager do you use? DNF.
Yeah.
I I've never even heard of that. What's
That's the normal one for Red Hat.
really? So Red Hat early days
Well,
use, well, Fedora early days use Yum.
Oh, yeah, I know, yeah.
Okay. And now we have like
That's
pip
big.
and we have apt. apt-get was big for a while.
Wait, Aptus for Ubuntu, wait, Yum was before you?
At least Yum was what they used in the very beginning of Fedora, when Fedora first did the split. Debian has .deb files, so they have their own a package manager, but whatever. Yeah, bottom line here is he was the last one you were going to ask, and I think we could all agree on that. All right, so we made these guys static. Now, static means that this member, either field, constructor, well, we would never have static in front of a constructor. Constructors always have the new keyword when we use them, but either this field or this method belongs to the class itself, not an instance of the class. Okay, and when we have something that's owned by the class itself, we call it using the name of the class in which it was defined. Here's 4 things defined inside of a class called exit manager. So inside here, if inside start, I want to set those 4 variables, what would I do? I want my singleton to have access to the game objects that were north, south, east, and west. How do I accomplish that with my current setup? Go ahead.
Well, you could use this keyword to like essentially like point those 4 values, like.
Well, help me write it.
So like this dot north exit is equal to.
You want me to say, okay, that's not north exit? Okay. Okay. Tell me why this is, let's call it very wrong. Well, tell me why this is wrong. At least you've used some words that involved in the solution. What are you currently saying? You're currently actually doing, you're actually trying to undo something you've already done. We made these guys public up here. Remember, we're inside the mono behavior, right? We made these guys public so that they would get exposed to the front end, to the Unity editor. All right, so that's our MVC in action. We connected those guys up over here. Right here, we connected each of these guys up. We've already set those variables by connecting them from the user interface. So you're coming in here and you're saying, look, I didn't like how that went down. So I'm going to replace that guy we'd already connected with because, well, so tell me, this right now is saying I'm going to replace the thing that was already connected with itself. So technically you're not breaking it.
No, yeah, that would be another way if you didn't have it.
What's the difference between this dot north exit here and just saying north exit? Just on this one line, line 11, what's the difference between those two?
Are you pointing to the object's expected values directly? Like,
Are you asking me?
Well, yes, it's a question.
I asked you, I didn't know the answer.
I'm reversing it.
What? Why would I ask a question if I already knew the answer to it?
That's what the Uno parts.
Is it?
Yeah.
What is Uno? Is Uno one of those like pre-installed games on Linux?
Well,
No, it's not
I
actually.
don't know.
They probably have their own version of Minesweeper. I know Linux used to have a game with Tux the penguin, that he was going down like a toboggan slide thing, and he would drive. And do you still have that? It's actually a fun game. No, this was actually a serious question. I used to like that game. You know, Tux is the name of the penguin, right?
Yeah, Tux is right up there.
Oh. Well, I didn't. I was just taking a guess that his name was Tux. You know, because penguins look like a tuxedo thing. See, I know something about Linux.
Idiot.
I think I used Linux before his name was Tux. His name became Tux probably when I was like 12 or something like that. All right. What does this dot north exit mean? Let's just start with that. This guy right here is referring to who? This guy, right? This dot north exit. This is how an object refers to itself within himself. And so we're talking about my field. right there, north exit. What about this version of north exit? What's that guy talking about? When I say that variables resolve to their most local definition, what do I mean by that? What do I mean about when I say variables resolve, what am I talking about? Let's just start with that part of the sentence. A variable, when I resolve a variable, what am I attempting to do? Other way. I'm getting the value from it. Yeah, so a variable already has something in it, presumably, might be null, but typically we create variables so they hold stuff for later use. So when I resolve a variable, I'm saying, give me the value you hold. I don't care where you're holding it. I don't care about the memory address, things like that. I mean, memory addresses are important for us to understand, but we don't really care where the program or the operating system is storing this in memory, outside of like an untrustworthy memory manager like low high swap Linux. Memory manager and 16 gigs. Do you even have a memory manager?
He's even unfeeling bad.
All right, so what's fun with that? I'm just waiting for a chair to get thrown. That'll make my day. All right, so when I say variable resolution, we're talking about the value this variable holds. And when I say variables resolve to their most local definition, variables are defined inside of a scope, right? Okay, we call them scopes. Scopes are like the various places that things can be created. All right, and our most local scope to this variable right here is this method called start. So do we see a definition for a variable named north exit inside of start? Do I see a definition for a variable called north exit passed in as a parameter to the function called start? So where do I look next? I look to the next more global scope. That is the scope of this class. Inside of this class, do I see the definition of a variable named north exit? I do. So when I say just north exit here, I'm saying look locally, didn't find it. Look in the parameter list, didn't find it. Now I'm not done looking yet. Let's go look somewhere else in the house. And we find it defined in our fields. So this guy equals this guy. We just had to do more steps to find it, because this dot north exit took us right to the fields. Or just north exit made the resolution engine go through and look in 2 or 3 spots before it finally found it. Depends on the implementation of the language as to whether the parameter list here is the same thing as this scope, or if it's 2 separate layers of scope. Just depends on the language. Makes no difference to what I just said. We either looked in 2 spots or we looked in 3 spots. Bottom line is, the first couple places we looked, we didn't find it. We found it in the last spot we looked. All right. So again, the problem we're trying to solve is I want exit managers north exit to be equal to the game object that is our north exit. And what we currently have written on line 11 sets north exit to itself within this class. Just as a reminder here, if I want to set north exit from this class, how do I set this guy equal to a value? Any value. Forget about what we're going to set him equal to. Tell me everything that's on the left-hand side of the assignment operator, the single equal sign. What's going to be on the left-hand side of the assignment operator if I want to set that guy right there to a value? Tell me why you're wrong. I was trying the throw up thing again.
Oh, it's because it's static, huh?
Yeah. So what does static mean? Again,
It's
belongs to the class, not an instance of the class. So since it belongs to the class, how do we reference it?
by calling
Class name. What's the class name? Exit manager. So if we come in here and we say exit manager dot north exit, equals this dot north exit. Now we have gotten our value from our user interface into a mono behavior, which we then use to set my singleton. So now every other game object that has a script, well, any other program in our entire application here, whether it's another mono behavior or another normal C# class, now has access to, well, at this point, just one of those exits, right? But has access to those exits. So I'll go ahead and set up the other one. So we'll say exit manager dot south exit is equal to this dot south exit. Exit manager dot west equals this dot west exit. Exit manager dot east equals this dot east exit. All right, so now through the use of our mono behavior, we've gotten our singleton to hold on to some game objects. And a singleton here, in this case, knows about our game objects. And this is kind of why I start them off as mono behaviors, because I get all the correct imports. It just puts the Unity engine in there. If I had said, hey, just create me a plain Jane C# file, I end up with the same thing as I have right here, except I wouldn't have using Unity engine at the top. Not that that's a humongous deal, but it's a lot easier just to backspace out mono behavior and delete two functions than to remember what was the exact name of the namespace where game object lives and the core Unity engine stuff. All right, so now what I can do is we're going to create another game object here. I like to do it this way. You really could put it on any of your game objects, but I'm going to connect it to something else. So I'm going to create a game object here called the Oracle. Remember, how many of you saw the movie The Matrix trilogy? Oh my gosh, people. You really didn't see The Matrix? I know he did. You saw The Matrix. Oh, good. Well, there's 4.
4? No, all 4. There's 3.
Okay, hold on.
Actually, there's 5.
That's true. But that came in the middle. And that was actually a whole series. So, but there is 4. But the last one was kind of like the Happy Gilmore 2. If you were a fan of the series, you liked the 4th one. But the 4th one was not the same as the first 3.
You do.
Because I love the Frenchman in the 4th one. When he's like pirate all run down his stomach. The Merovingian.
Okay.
From Merovingians from 2. Yeah, 2. That's how they got to the Keymaster. I love that guy. he picks French because he likes how the cussing sounds in the language. Okay, so you have some skills. He's great in the 4th one. Yeah.
I gotta watch.
I mean, he's like a vagrant, like kind of like what's happened to these people after the fact. And Neo's lost all of his powers. He doesn't know who he is. Oh man. So anyways, Oracle in the Matrix trilogy was played by this lady who was she was a computer program in the Matrix, and she kind of knew stuff. Was the idea. Unfortunately for them, a la Harry Potter, the lady who played the Oracle died after the 2nd movie. And they had to recast her in the 3rd movie, and they had to come up with a way of explaining why she looks different, just like Dumbledore in the Harry Potter movies. When did he die after movie 2 or 3? Yeah. First guy was the perfect Dumbledore. The second guy grew on me, but was never the same.
I was thinking that better.
Well, you would.
Yeah. You seem like
Really?
a shirt of like a dump.
Well, maybe.
Except for the part, like the meme, like the book says like, Harry, did you put your name in the goblet of fire? He said calmly, and the movies of screaming at him.
Oh. Well, I don't know. I like the first guy. The first guy gave off more of the kind of powerful but airheaded feel that Dumbledore is supposed to have, which I don't think the young Dumbledore in the newer movies gives that edge. You know, like he hadn't gone quite crazy yet. So I think the second Dumbledore feels more like the Dumbledore from the Grimwald or the newer movies, which I liked that too, but it didn't feel like the same Dumbledore to me. You know, that early guy, you can kind of say, okay, this guy, you know, he's got some chops.
Yeah.
Probably don't want to get in the wizardy thing with him. Where the old Dumbledore, he's like, you know, he's forgotten more than anybody else has ever learned. Yet he just accidentally does like crazy stuff that people like have no idea how that happens, but neither does he. All right. Well, so anyways, the Oracle knows all is the idea in our thing. So I will so we kind of think of this game object as like an overseer of our game that's going on here. In fact, that script, instead of putting it on exit, probably would have made some sense putting that on Oracle. Doesn't necessarily matter. They're both empty game objects. But in any case, the Oracle, we might create a script here, a mono behavior script, and let's call this guy the Oracle. And the Oracle will get attached to a game object, in our case, the Oracle, so that it can do stuff related to the game. Now, one of the things we need to think about, though, in applications as they start getting more and more complex, especially something like Unity Game Engine, where so much stuff is done for us and we don't know kind of the exact order it's done. Like, do we know that this is going to happen before the Oracle starts doing Oracle stuff? We don't necessarily know that. But what we can do here is we can test it. Because really, inside the Oracle, maybe we want to do some stuff to the exits. We want to turn the exits on or turn the exits off or whatever. Now I can go in here and I can say exit manager dot north exit dot, is it set enabled? Set active to not exit manager dot get active. Oh, sorry. Dot north exit dot active. All right, active is old. What has it been replaced with? I think that should work. I want to get the active value. Obsolete. Use set active self or active in hierarchy. Okay. So it wants me to use this active self thing. I guess that's saying, am I active self? Go ahead.
What's the benefit to putting this type of code into the Oracle as opposed to exit?
Well, so the idea here is that if the Oracle kind of knows all, we're looking at that startup process. So
It's a game manager.
well, the Oracle maybe is kind of like, you could think of as like maybe the orchestrator. Like you do this, you do this, you do this. So maybe the Oracle kind of knows which exits should be shown, which exits shouldn't. The Oracle might hold our instance of our dungeon so that the room we're currently in, room, you know, this room has the correct exit shown versus, you know, so if you think about our cross dungeon, the first couple should just have the first room should have a north exit only, so on and so forth. So this guy's the one who makes sure she turns on and off the switches based on what room we're currently in. But we want to see how those switches interact with each other. Because remember, exit manager dot north exit does not get set until these other things. Now, I'm arbitrarily doing this to get a singleton into it. We could have just set the Oracle to have these public fields and set them directly, and then the Oracle would definitely have access to those. But we presume there might be uses for a singleton moving forward, so we've artificially created this. And we want to see what that startup sequence looks like. Do we know that update here is going to not get called until all of the starts have finished across multiple game objects? Because effectively, if you put yourself in the shoes of the game manager, you're going to say, okay, all of my mono behaviors start. Now, is that happening as a single thread where it's just going down a list sequentially, telling each of them to start, and doesn't even start that game loop, which calls update until all of them have started? Or does it spawn off multiple threads to start the various game objects, to start their start color start function, and then after an individual game object has started, it can then start calling its own update, and that guy's already participating or whatever, which you might get into a situation where if this start, which does nothing, finishes quick and immediately starts calling its update, that north exit, I'm just sitting down for a second, my leg's going to sleep. This north exit here might not be available yet, because exit manager.north exit may not have actually gotten set yet if we're still waiting for it to get set here in startup inside of their start function. So in operating systems, this would be called a race condition. All right. So at this point, we're kind of exploring what order do these things happen in. All right. So our hope here is that, and we're probably not going to be able to see it, but maybe it's happening so fast, we'll get the flicker. As update is getting called, we're going to keep changing whether north exit is active or not active, but we're doing it per frame. So we might not see the flicker. We might want to put a little bit of a delay in here, but let's just see what this guy looks like. So we might keep an eye on our north exit here. I need to move the camera though, because right now our view is somewhat sketch. All right, let's call that good. We can at least see him, right? Oh yeah, we got the flicker. It's actually kind of interesting. You see how just sometimes it kind of has like a little hiccup. You know, somewhere in there, we're probably seeing little, we're probably experiencing the memory management of the uh, operating system on here, the Mac OS bad operating system.
Yep.
Am I pronouncing that right?
Yep.
All right. So the Mac OS bad operating system, it has a memory manager in it, and it is also has a process management. So Unity here is a process that's running. So it gets to decide the system resources that guy has access to. Where's my program for that? So it's got to pick one of these guys. Look at all these cores. The M5 Max has super cores. Oh yeah. Is your 16 gig thing? Is it running it's a brawn toaster. It's a modified it's a modified toaster.
Give potatoes, but
I'm sure.
the red one's very high in power.
I already suggested that, remember?
Yeah.
Give it a shot. It might. All right. So we're kind of experiencing how that is happening, but there is a process manager in every operating system. Operating systems are effectively APIs, just like that Pokemon thing we did. And inside of that thing, it exposes a whole bunch of system calls, which you can think of as kind of like API endpoints. But it has a process manager that has to manage, like, okay, well, which process gets access to a CPU core next. So when we see little hiccups here, it's probably that this thing was told to get off the CPU, get back in line to wait for it to be assigned to another CPU. Now, it might get back onto that CPU pretty quickly. That's kind of the benefit of having multiple cores, especially if it's an object that isn't reliant, or a process that's not reliant on other processes. If it's running completely independently, it can just, you kick him off this tennis court, he can go just start playing again on the one over there. But still, his time ran out on this one. So he has to switch courts, and there's a little delay with that as a cost. All right, so let me just run it again here real quick, make sure we still get the flicker. Because if we started not getting the flicker, and actually what we should do, we want to test this a little bit stronger, because we aren't necessarily seeing if this guy existed. We're going to do this one time. We're going to say if exit manager, do I have that saved? Yeah, if exit manager dot north exit dot, what was it, active self ninja. So if that guy is active currently, then we'll set it to be not active. We know it starts off as active, right? So this will let us know if it turns off right away and we don't see it, we'll know that the game object had already connected. If we, which I think we already would have known that we had an error, but otherwise it'll just turn off. So let me just run this real quick so we see it. We'll pick up from here next time. All right, turned off. So we proved that we did have programmatic access to it by the time we hit the first update, and that's happening pretty consistently. So we probably can trust that all the starts get called before any of the updates start. Kind of an important thing, because you don't want to start making changes to game objects before you have access to those game objects. All right, questions, comments, concerns, bribes. I'll see everybody on Thursday. Final exam will be like our normal test. I'll put it up Monday morning. We'll talk about it a little bit on Thursday, but you'll have to take it sometime before 11:59 p.m. on Friday. You decide when it fits into your final schedule. I'll start grading on Saturday morning. So
You'll find a time to discuss that project.
yeah, didn't you?
Shot you an email.
Okay, didn't we talk about Thursday?
Did we put it on? I didn't see a response.
Oh, we didn't, but we can.
Yeah.
If you can, you just send me an invite?
Yeah.
And I'll just accept it, because I just checked. I'm open Thursday. All right.
I've actually not done that on Outlook yet.
Yeah.
No.
Get your